Hello students, welcome to KENE'S Educare, a group of KENE solutions. This is part 4 of lesson number 7, Diversity in Living Organism. Okay, so now we have already discussed a lot the basic things we have discussed in part 3, and in the last class we have discussed all the 5 kingdoms, that is kingdom Monera, kingdom Protista, kingdom Fungi, kingdom Plantae and kingdom Animalia in short, with the characteristics like what kind of plants are included. All the plants that we are having, they come under the kingdom Plantae. All the fungi that we have, they come under the kingdom Fungi. Okay, all the unicellular prokaryotes, you can say, they come under kingdom Monera, and unicellular eukaryotes, they come under kingdom Protista. So these are some of the characteristics that we have went through in the last parts, right? And even we have studied about the hierarchical classification, how exactly the hierarchy is been made. So till now you might be aware of that we have family, then comes the phylum, or like phylum is for plants. No, phylum is for animals and groups is for division is for plants. Okay, you need to remember this. Kingdom, phylum, then class, family, genus, order, species. So this is how the hierarchical classification goes on, right? So this lesson we have what is the basic thing that we are studying. Overall diversity in living organism has 5 different kingdoms to study in detail. So this 5 kingdom system was given by R.H. Whittaker sir. Okay, and the reason behind this is he was seeing that all the scientists, they were struggling finding the, like, agar if they are doing an experiment on one thing, so they have to start their classification from the 0 point. But now because we have this 5 kingdom, what happens is we know that this is an animal or this is an organism. It belongs to kingdom Animalia. The family of this is this, and it is similar to the family of this organism. So this is how, on the basis of comparison study, 30 to 40, and even you can say that 50% of the done work is done there, because we all are aware of key which organism it is belonging to, which phylum, which family and all. Okay, so earlier people were studying with all these things, but now because of the 5 kingdom classification, the system and the hierarchical classification that we have got, the task has become easier for all the scientists. Even we are able to classify them, right? The knowledge has been shared with us as well. In this lesson you will be studying about the nomenclature as well. There you will come to know ki how the naming has been done, how they have been named, how has been nomenclated. Okay, फिर हमने देखा that kingdom Monera, kingdom Protista and kingdom Fungi, they are not divided further. But when it comes to kingdom Animalia and kingdom Plantae, you can see that kingdom Plantae has 5 main division. Can you please tell me the names of those 5 main division that kingdom Plantae has? And in fact I want you all to take, like, to write it in your notebook so that you are clear with the spellings as well, because here you have different spellings that we don't use every day, right? So we, the first division, that kingdom Animalia, not kingdom Animalia division, when it comes to division it is kingdom Plantae. When it comes to phylum it is kingdom Animalia. Okay, you need to keep this in mind. Okay, so when it comes to division 1, that is 5 main divisions of kingdom Plantae, the first division that we have is Bryophyta. Okay, we have Bryophyta, we have Thallophyta, we have Pteridophyta, we have Gymnosperms and Angiosperms. So these are the 5 main divisions of kingdom Plantae that we have. And after kingdom Plantae, we have 10 different phylums which come under kingdom Animalia, and we are going to discuss the characteristics of all those 10 different phylums. And the last phylum that we have, that is phylum Vertebrata, that is again divided into 6 groups. So we are going to study that 6 groups as well again. And after that, after studying in detail about kingdom Animalia, discussing everything about the phylums and classes that comes under kingdom Animalia, Lastly, we have nomenclature to discuss, and there are 6 questions to discuss that we are going to discuss once we complete with this. Okay, so now I want you all to know. See, my basic objective is when I am starting the lesson, you should know what all things are being covered, what are the topics that are included in this lesson, because sometimes it happens that if I tell you nomenclature, you will just search the index and you will just try to figure it out where the nomenclature topic has been included, because nomenclature and diversity in living organism, they are not somewhat related to each other. Only 10% or 20% you can say that they are related to each other. So you will try to find it out, and when it comes in exam, you will you will have a blank face that we haven't had nomenclature topic in our syllabus or in our textbook, or the answers that we have studied in that. Then you will say that the paper is from outside, or there is an extra question which has been added, but it is not so. The questions are always from the textbook only. Okay, it's just that we don't study them, we just study the exercise questions which have been given. So I don't want these things to happen with you all. Okay, whenever we are discussing on this, why there is a repetitive revision which has been done, the repetitive revision of all the topic is because I don't want you all to take your books a week before and rectify that. I want your concepts to be clear. I want that you should know कि हाँ मुझे इस lesson में क्या पढ़ना है, and you should understand the concepts. That is the most important thing, because if you are rectifying the things after you complete your exam na, you will find it that you are blank. Even if I ask you the meaning of diversity after your paper, you will say what is diversity, you will forget that meaning as well because you have rectified that. So I don't want this conditions or the situations to occur. So I want you all to understand the basic concept, and as and when we are repeating, your mind is capturing those things again and again, again and again. So your long-term memory, like it will have everything that we have studied. Okay. So we started this lesson by discussing on what the first topic that we have discussed for this lesson was about the evolution. Now diversity in living organism. If evolution also comes in exam, you will just try to figure it out ki evolution where I have studied evolution. Okay, so whenever the name comes the about evolution, okay, the first name that clicks the mind is Charles Darwin. Who? Charles Darwin. And why Charles Darwin? Because Charles Darwin, he was the first one who has, you can say, who has given the idea of evolution in the year 1855. And this idea of evolution in 1855, it was given in his famous book, that is the Origin of Species. Okay, where was it given? It was given in Origin of Species wala part. Okay, and just have a look on the, you can say, year when this evolution was the concept that was being studied during that time. So the year is 1855. Okay, and evolution is nothing new concept that we are studying, right? So see, evolution is nothing new concept that we are having. It is something that you can say that we are studying from 6 7 standard. We know that पहले हम a monkey जैसे थे, we had a tailbone, right? Now also we have it, but now like it is of no use in our body, है ना? So this is how we are evolving, and we are having certain things with us. So those organisms who have Asian design, what do they have? They have Asian design. Now we don't have such kind of Asian designs with us, right? So and they have not changed their primitive organism as well. So those who acquired certain special characters during the time period are known as advanced or higher organisms. Okay. Now I want you all to like just write this hierarchy two times in your notebook right now. Can you share me, okay, but after evolution we have discussed on biodiversity. What we have discussed? We have discussed on biodiversity, and I hope that now you know what is the meaning of biodiversity. I have told you this ample number of time. Bio means living and diversity means variation. So the living variation that is seen on the earth in with respect to the different life forms, that is called as biodiversity, and it is a word which is commonly used. Like biodiversity kya hai? It is a word that we commonly use to refer the variety of life forms that we can find in a particular region. So when it comes to diverse life form, this diverse life form, it shares the environment and they are going to be affected by each other, right? Because we all are dependent on each other some or the other way, right? Plants are dependent on us and we are dependent on plants some or the other way. So as a result, a stable community of different species come into existence. What happens? A stable community comes into existence here. So humans have played their own part in recent time where they are changing the balance of some communities. What are they doing? They are like, because of our some or the other kind of you can say role that we are playing with respect to environment. What are we doing? We are changing the balance of our communities, and that changes, they are affecting, like they are being affected by the particular characteristics of land, water, climate, and so on, right? So according to a rough estimate, it has been said that there are about 10 million species which are present on the planet. How many? 10 million species जो हमारे planet पे present है. Although we actually know that हमें कितने पता है? We know that 10 million species है, but हमने study कितने किए हैं? We have only known 1 or 2 million of them. Okay. Then here comes an important definition for the region of mega diversity. Now, if I tell you, after completing these lessons after 1 month, if I tell you, uh, just find out in which lesson you have this region of mega diversity and tell me the definition for it. So there you will get confused. Ki where should I find this region of mega diversity? Now looking at the topic, you may come here and you may find it out. Otherwise, it is going to become difficult for you to find this region of mega diversity. Now what exactly it is? See, the warm and humid tropical region of the earth. We all know that on earth we have this warm and humid tropical regions, right? And this warm and humid tropical region, it exists between the tropic of Cancer and the tropic of Capricorn. Okay, where does it exist? It exists between the Tropic of Cancer and Tropic of Capricorn, and both these tropics, they are having a rich diversity with respect to plant and the animal life. And the region of this Tropic of Cancer and Tropic of Capricorn, we call it as the region of mega diversity. Okay, so of the diversity which is present on the planet, half of the diversity is being concentrated in few countries, like we have Brazil, we have Colombia, then we have Ecuador, Peru, Mexico, Zaire, Madagascar, Australia, China, India, Indonesia, and Malaysia. Okay, so these are some of the countries where half of the, you can say, half of the population, or you can see the biodiversity, they are concentrated in these countries. After biodiversity, we have discussed on the hierarchy of classification, where the hierarchy shows like we have kingdom, and if you can see the kingdom is so large because all the plants, all the animals, they come under this kingdom. Now the species are going to reduce because we are going to characterize them into the phylum. After phylum, we have to characterize them into class. So now if you can see, the species are decreasing because we are characterizing them into different classes, into different order. After order, we are going to differentiate them with respect to family. Okay, then family ke baad we have genus, and then we have a particular species that comes up. Okay, so here, who was working on this hierarchy of classification? So we have biologists such as Ernest Haeckel in the year 1894, Robert Whittaker in the year 1969, and Carl Voice in the year 1977. They all the three, they were trying to classify all the living organisms into broad categories, and they called those categories as kingdoms. So all three means Ernest Haeckel, Robert Whittaker sir, and Carl Voice. They all three were trying to classify living organisms into a broad category, and they called that category as kingdom. Okay, so the classification Whittaker proposed, it has five kingdoms. How many kingdoms? We have five kingdoms. So we have kingdom Monera, we have kingdom Protista, we have kingdom Fungi, Plantae, and Animalia. So these are the five main kingdoms that we are having, which was proposed by Whittaker sir. Okay, so these groups, they are formed. This groups means this five kingdoms के जो groups है, they are formed on the basis of, now how Whittaker sir had made this five different kingdoms. So he was looking after the cell structure, the mode and the source of nutrition that the organism is having or it is following, and the body organization. Okay, so whatever kind of modification was seen by Woos, he has introduced them by dividing the kingdom Monera, the first kingdom that we are having. So Woos have divided this kingdom Monera into Archaebacteria, we can also call it as Archae, and Eubacteria, which is also called as a bacteria, which is also in use nowadays. Okay. So the further classification, we can do it by naming it into different subgroups that is present at different levels. So the first thing that we have is kingdom. We are all aware of the five different kingdoms that we are having, right? After kingdom, we have like the next thing, that is phylum for animals and division for plants. What do we have? Phylum for animals and divisions for plants. Okay. So, thus, by separating the organisms on the basis of hierarchy of characteristics into smaller and smaller groups, we arrive at a basic unit of classification. And what is that basic unit of classification that we arrive at the end? that is species, which we call it as species. Okay, so what organisms can be said to belong to the same species? So we broadly have the species which are included in all the organisms, and they are similar enough to perpetuate and breed. Okay. After that we started with this kingdom monera, where we saw that kingdom monera jo hai, it has all the organisms who are not having a well defined nucleus, not having a well, like they do not have organelles as well, nor do they show multicellular body design. Okay, so all the organism under kingdom monera, they don't have well defined nucleus, they don't have organelles, they don't show multicellular body design. Okay, on the other hand, this organisms, that is the organisms under kingdom monera, they show diversity which is based on many other characteristics, and some of them they have cell walls while some do not. So the organism under kingdom monera, some of them might be having a cell wall, some of them will not have. And of course, having or not having a cell wall has a very different effect on the body design, right? Because having or not having a cellular like cell wall in a multicellular organism is different, because we are going to have a look on whether how it is working there, right? If they are having cell wall, the basic process that they follow, that is going to be different. If they are not having a cell wall, then also it is going to be different. The procedures or the functions that they are performing, that is going to differ, right? So the mode of nutrition of organism in this group, that is kingdom monera के अंदर जो organism है, the mode of nutrition that they are having is either by synthesizing their own food, and if they are synthesizing their own food, we call them as autotrophs, or else what they can do is they are getting their food from the environment, that is they are eating the other plants or animals and they are surviving. So such type of such mode of nutrition, we call it as heterotrophic nutrition. What do we call? Heterotrophic nutrition. And kingdom monera, it includes bacteria, blue green algae, which we also call it as cyanobacteria, and we have mycoplasma. Okay, and the examples are shown in this figure 7.1, where they have shown this anabaena and bacteria. So this is the example of monera. Now next we have is kingdom protista. So kingdom protista has group of animals, like they are going to be unicellular eukaryotic organisms. What are they? Kingdom protista has organisms which are unicellular eukaryotic organisms, and some of these organisms, okay, some of these organisms, they are going to use appendages. Now appendages mean, what does it has? It has appendages such as hair like cilia or whip like flagella. What are they going to have? Hair like cilia or flip like flagella for them. Okay, so if you can see the diagram of this euglena, you can see the flagella, and if you see paramecium, you can see thread-like structure, hair-like cilia which is present here. Okay, so the organisms which come under kingdom protista, they are going to have either the cilia or flagella, so that they can locomote. That means so that they can move from one place to another. Okay, now this mode of nutrition, it can be autotrophic. Autotrophic means either they are going to make their own food. If they are making their own food, we call them as autotrophic. If they are dependent on others for their food, they are called as heterotrophic. Okay, so examples of this is unicellular algae, diatoms, and protozoan. So the diagram has been shown here. We have the diagram of paramecium which has been given. Okay, you can see the hair like cilia which has been present. Then this is an amoeba, which is also an example of organism that comes under kingdom protista. Okay, next we have euglena, where you can see the flagella which has been present. So this also comes under kingdom protista. After that, we have kingdom fungi to discuss. So we have yeast, mold, and mushroom. Yeast का example is Saccharomyces, mold का example is Penicillium, and mushroom का example is Agaricus. Okay. So see, fungi has all the organism who are going to be heterotrophic eukaryotic organism. Heterotrophic means they are always going to be dependent on some plants or animals or decaying matters for their food, and eukaryotic means they have a well developed nucleus, right? They do not have cell wall. So fungi has like the organisms or the fungi which are included under this kingdom fungi, they are going to be heterotrophic eukaryotic organisms. Okay, so some of the fungi, they are going to use decaying organic material as a food. Now if you remember the example which I have told you with respect to tiffin box that you have kept for 10 days in your bag, after 10 days when you take out the tiffin box from your bag, you will see the fungal growth on it, right? So why does it occurs? What is the reason behind this? This is because of fungi, they always grow on decaying matter, and therefore we call them as saprophytes. What do we call them as? Saprotrophs बोलते हैं, or we can even call them as saprophytes. Okay. So others, they require a living protoplasm of the host organism. What do they look after? They require a living protoplasm of the host organism for their food, and we call them as parasites. What do we call them as? Parasites. Okay. So many of them, they have the capacity that they can become, okay, most of them, they are going to have the capacity so that they can become a multicellular organism at certain stage in their life. Okay, so here they are going to have, what are they going to have? They are going to have cell wall, and the cell wall of this organisms, that is made up of a complex sugar, and that complex sugar we call it as chitin. What do we call it as? Chitin. So I hope that you have taken a note of it. Okay, so example of fungi, what does it include? It includes yeast, it has molds, then mushroom. These are the different examples which you have for this. Okay, now see, some fungal species, they live in permanent mutually dependent relationship. What has been said कि कुछ ऐसे fungal species होते हैं where they live like they are mutually dependent relationships with this blue green algae, which we also call it as a cyanobacteria. So such kind of relationships go, we call them as symbiotic, and this biotic life form, we call them as lichens. What do we call them? Lichens. Okay, so we have all seen lichens, which are slow growing large colored patches which are being seen. So we are already aware of it. Then we have kingdom plantae to discuss. Okay, so now kingdom plantae, we all have, you all seen plants moving from one place to another? No, right? Plants do not move from one place to another. So they are non-motile, but animals are motile, right? So the first thing that you are already aware of, that plants are non-motile. They make their own food through the process of photosynthesis, and hence we call them as autotrophs. What do we call them? We call them as autotrophs. Okay, so they reproduce asexually by vegetative propagation, or they are going to reproduce sexually. How do they reproduce? They reproduce asexually or by vegetative propagation. Okay, now all of them, they are going to be multicellular eukaryotes. What are they? Multicellular eukaryotes. And the plant cells, they contain the outer cell wall, and along with that outer cell wall, we are also going to have a large central vacuole. What do we have? We also have a large central vacuole there. So plants ka we have already discussed about vacuoles, chloroplast and chlorophyll, right? We are all aware of plant cells have all those things, right? So plants, they contain photosynthetic pigment, which we call it as chlorophyll, and this chlorophyll is present in the plastids. As well as plants have different organelles, which is helping us in encourage reproduction, supporting as well as photosynthesis. Now, why the plants are able to perform photosynthesis and why animals cannot, and why we human beings cannot? Because plant cell has a chloroplast which have a photosynthetic pigment called as chlorophyll, which is present within them, and that is the reason that plants can make their own food. But with respect to animals and we human beings, we are not having a chloroplast. It means we are not having this photosynthetic pigment called chlorophyll, and that is the reason that we are not able to perform our, like, we are not able to produce or make our own food. Okay, so these are multicellular eukaryotes with cell wall. Plants have cell wall while animal cells do not have cell wall. Now this basic difference also you should know. Okay, so plants are autotrophs, means they make their own food, and they use chlorophyll for photosynthesis, and thus we can say that all plants are included in this group. And since we all know that plants and animals, they are the most viable form of diversity of life which we can find around us, right? So that is the reason plants and animals are further divided into different groups. Then we have this animalia. So kingdom animalia is going to obviously going to have all the animals together, right? So among the 5 kingdoms, that is kingdom Monera, kingdom Protista, kingdom Fungi, kingdom Plantae and kingdom Animalia, from all the 5 different kingdoms, kingdom Animalia is the largest kingdom which we have in the animal kingdom. Okay, and all the animals, they are made up of many cells, right? So that is why we call these animals as multicellular eukaryotes. What do we call them? Multicellular eukaryotes. Okay, so however, like plants, animals do not have chlorophyll or a cell wall. So animals are not having chlorophyll, as well as we animals are not having the cell wall as well. Okay, therefore the members of animal kingdom, all the members of animal kingdom, they are heterotrophic mode of nutrition. Why? Because they are dependent on others for their food, and that is the reason we say that they exhibit an heterotrophic mode of nutrition. Okay, so kingdom Animalia, it has been classified into how many subphyla? It has been divided into 10 different subphyla, and this subphyla is based on the body design or differentiation. Okay, so this include all the organisms which are multicellular eukaryote. So kingdom Animalia has all the animals or the organisms who are multicellular eukaryotes, and they don't have any cell wall, without cell wall. Okay, so they are heterotrophs, and this is the chart that we have discussed in the last class as well, where we saw that organisms are of 2 types, prokaryotes and eukaryotes. So prokaryotes may we have unicellular kind of organism, and that comes under kingdom Monera. Where does it comes? It comes under kingdom Monera. And eukaryotes may we have unicellular organism as well as multicellular organism. So unicellular organism includes kingdom Protista. What does it include? Kingdom Protista. Okay, and multicellular organism may we have 2 conditions, where we have like eukaryotic multicellular organism with cell wall and without cell wall. So with cell wall we have 2 criterias, where the organism is going to perform photosynthesis, then that comes under Kingdom Plantae. If they are not able to perform photosynthesis, that comes under kingdom Animalia. Sorry, kingdom Fungi. Okay, and Animalia is what? Kingdom Animalia has all the animals. Okay, what do they have? They have all the animals who are eukaryotic multicellular without cell wall. Okay, so that is kingdom Animalia. Okay, so I hope this table has been clear. Now we are going to discuss on five different divisions of kingdom Plantae. Okay, so see, the organisms which are belonging to this group, they are autotrophs. What are they? Kingdom Plantae के अंदर जो भी organisms आएंगे, they are going to be autotrophs. Now why autotrophs? Because all the plants, they make their own food through the process of photosynthesis. Now why the plants are able to make their own food? Because why? Because plants have chloroplast within their cell, and chloroplast have a photosynthetic pigment called as chlorophyll, which helps the plant in making their own food. And that is why all the plants which comes under this kingdom Plantae, they are called as autotrophs. Okay, and they make use of chlorophyll for photosynthesis in order to produce food for themselves. Okay, so for making the food for themselves, you are aware of that they have photosynthesis process. So when they are performing this photosynthesis process, they are making use of chlorophyll pigment as well. Okay, so the first level of classification that exists among plants. Okay, what did I just said? First level of classification among plants, it depends on whether the plant body, it is having well differentiated distinct parts or not. Okay, तो जो पहला लेवल ऑफ क्लासिफिकेशन है वो क्या बताता है हमें कि प्लांट बॉडी डिफरेंशिएटेड है या नहीं, वेदर इट इज हैविंग द रूट, इट इज हैविंग द स्टेम, leaves, okay, and flowers and fruits. These are the, you can say, differentiated parts of the plants that we are having. So firstly we have to see to it whether the plant body is having such kind of well differentiated and distinct part of the plant altogether. Okay, उसके बाद the next level of classification that we have, that is based on whether the differentiated plant body, abhi the root, stem, leaves, whether this differentiated plant body, they have special tissue for transport of water and other substances or not. So first thing we are going to check with respect to plant is whether they have differentiated parts of the plants or not. Second thing that we are going to check is whether the differentiated plant body that they are having, whether it is having special tissue so that it can transport the water and other substances. So the vascular tissues that we are having, that is conducting the food and water, right? So you have to check whether the differentiated plant parts, they are having xylem and phloem or not, because xylem is responsible for conducting the water to different parts of the plant. So we have to see to it whether xylem is present or not. Then phloem is responsible for conducting the food and the essential nutrient which is being needed by the plant from one part of the plant to the other. Okay, so we need to check whether they are having this special tissue within them or not. So these are the two level of classification which has been given. Okay, now the further classification, it looks at the ability, whether the plants, they are having the ability that they can bear the seeds, and whether the seeds are enclosed within the fruits. Now the third level of classification that we are having is based on the ability of the plants, whether the plants are able to bear the seeds, or agar if they are having the seeds, if the plants are bearing the seeds, are the seeds enclosed within the fruit. So these are the 3 to 4 level of classification which has been given, like criterias, or you can see the level of organization which has been given. How are we differentiating the kingdom plant into 5 different divisions? Okay, so the first part that we have is called as thallophyta. Now before that I'll go with this part. How is the plant classified? So this is the classification of plant ka in short summary which has been given. So see, we have plants who have differentiated plant parts and who are not having differentiated plant parts. Okay, ye do cheez ho gayi. Now the plants who are not having differentiated plant parts like the root, stem, leaves, fruits, flowers, if the plants are not having this differentiated plant parts, then all that plants come under thallophyta. Okay, now you are clear with it. thallophyta में कौन से plants आएंगे जिनके पास differentiated plant parts नहीं है, जैसे कि root, stems, leaves, ये सारी चीजें नहीं है. Then we have plants who are having this differentiated plant parts, and there also we have two kind of division that goes on, whether they are having vascular tissue, xylem or phloem or not. So uh, the plants who are not having this xylem and phloem, that is when they are not having any specialized vascular tissue, that comes under bryophyta division. And if the plants are having xylem and phloem, then we have two different kinds here. If they are having xylem and phloem, whether they are producing the seed or whether they are not producing the seeds. Okay, if they are not producing the seed, that comes under pteridophyta division. If they are producing the seeds, we call them as phanerogams, and we can divide it into two types. They are bearing naked seeds or the seeds are inside the fruit. Okay, so if they are bearing naked seeds, that comes under gymnosperms, and if the seeds are inside the fruit, then that comes under angiosperm. Now angiosperm is further divided into two, whether they are having one cotyledon. If they are having one cotyledon, that comes under monocots. If they are having seeds with two cotyledons, then that comes under dicotyledon. Dicots you can say, or you can say dicotyledon. Okay, so I hope at least this classification chart has been clear to you. Now whenever you start studying different divisions, first you have to study this chart, and after studying this chart you're going to start the characteristics of all the different divisions that we are having. So as we have already discussed on thallophyta, you know that thallophyta ke andar the plants are not differentiated into different plant parts. Like if you see this eulothrix, can you see the stem? Can you see the roots? Can you see the flowers and fruits? No, right? Then we have cladophora, we have alva, we have spirogyra, we have chara. These are some of the plants which you can see who are not having roots, stems, leaves and all. You cannot differentiate the plant parts here. Okay, so thallophyta, they are usually found in moist or wet places. Where do we find thallophyta? Moist and wet places में हमें thallophyta देखने मिलेगा, and this is because of the absence. Like how can we see this thallophyta? Why this thallophytas exist in the moist or wet places? Because they don't have through leaves and vascular tissue. Why are they present in the moist and wet places? Because these plants, they do not have through roots as well as the vascular system, vascular tissue, that is the xylem and phloem, which is needed for transporting the food and the you can say water and the food materials as well as minerals to the plant. There is absence of this vascular tissue as well here, and hence you can say that they are found in moist or wet places because they are not having xylem and phloem to transport their food and water and mineral and all, and that is the reason that comes under this. They are found in this moist and wet places. Okay, now all the you can say organism that comes under thallophyta division, they are autotrophic in nature. Where do they live? They live in moist and wet places, and they are autotrophic in nature. Autotrophic means what? They make their own food. What did I say? They are autotrophic in nature. They are making their own food, and okay, most members of this group, most members of this thallophyta group, they manufacture their own food, and that is why they are autotrophic in nature. But we have few members like fungi. Now we have studied about kingdom fungi ka characteristics, that they are dependent on decaying matter and dead organisms, right? So few fungi which are member of this thallophyta, they are dependent on other food sources. So reserve food. Now how this members of thallophyta, how are they reserving their food? Reserving means how are they storing their food? So the food reserve is generally starch. Okay, so plants, that do not have a well differentiated body design, they fall in this group. तो अगर आप सारा एग्जाम्पल देख रहे हो, यूलोथ्रिक्स, क्लैडोफोरा, अल्वा, स्पाइरोगायर, then we have chara. These are all the you can say these are all the members of Thallophyta who are not having a well differentiated body design, and that is why they are included in this Thallophyta group. Okay, so the plants in this group, they are commonly called as algae, because algae is one thing that we find that algae is only grow in moist and wet places, right? And they are autotrophic in nature, they are not dependent on others for their food, they are manufacturing their own food, right? So most of the plants that come under this Thallophyta division group, that is called that they are called as algae. And these plants, they are predominantly aquatic. ये plants क्या होंगे? Predominantly aquatic है, because they are living in moist and wet places. That is why they are predominantly aquatic. And the examples of this Thallophyta, they are Spirogyra, we have Ulothrix, we have Cladophora, Alva, and Chara. So you can see the figure here. Now just I want you all to check your textbook and check if they have given you to draw a specific structure of any of the plant part. Like you can have a Spirogyra ka structure, they can say you to draw. Okay, then Cladophora ka bhi they can ask. If it is there in your exercise part, then only. Okay. Now the second division that we have is Bryophyta. What is the second division that comes under kingdom Plantae? It is Bryophyta. Now this Bryophyta, it includes Riccia, Merchantia, and this is Funaria. Okay, so these are some of the common bryophytes ka example which has been given. So bryophytes are called as amphibians of the plant kingdom. What are they called? Bryophytes are called as amphibians of the plant kingdom. They are amphibians. It means they can live on land as well as inside the water. So they are the amphibians of the plant kingdom. So the plant body, okay, the plants that come under this Bryophyta, the plant body is commonly differentiated to form stem and leaf like structure. ठीक है, Thallophyta के अंदर जो plants थे, they were not differentiated, they were not having a like the plant body was not differentiated. But with respect to Bryophyta, the plant body is going to be differentiated so that it can form stem and leaf like structure. What it can form? Stem and leaf like structure. Okay, however, there is no specialized tissue which is available for conduction of water and other substances from one part of the plant body to another. Now Bryophyta has plants who are not having any specialized tissue like xylem and phloem, because xylem and phloem, they are responsible for conducting the water and the food, right? So there are no specialized tissue which is being available here to the plants which comes under this Bryophyta, okay, which can help in conducting the food and plant from one part of the plant body to the another. And the example of the plant that comes under Bryophyta, they are moss, that is called as Funaria, and Merchantia. You can see the diagram which has been given in the figure here. Okay, so now what you need to remember, the plant that comes under Bryophyta, they are not having any specialized tissue like xylem and phloem. Okay, then we can differentiate the plant body of the plant that comes under Bryophyta into stem and leaf like structure, and they are called as the amphibians of the animal kingdom. Who are called as the amphibians of the plant kingdom? They are Bryophyta. Okay, what is the meaning of amphibians? That the plants can grow on land as well as inside the water as well. And what is the example? Moss, that is Funaria, or Funaria you can say, and Merchantia, which has been shown, and Riccia is also an example. Okay, now the third division that we have is Pteridophyta. Okay, so fern is one of the best example of Pteridophyta which comes. Okay, so in this group, that is in Pteridophyta, we are able to differentiate the plant body into root, stem, and leaves, as well as all the plants under Pteridophyta, they are going to have a specialized tissue, that is xylem and phloem, for conducting the water and other substances from one part of the plant to another. Now अभी हमने Thallophyta and Bryophyta देखा. There the plants were not that much differentiated, like, right? But यहाँ पे the plants are well differentiated into root, stem and leaves, as well as they are having xylem and phloem also, so that they can conduct the water and food from one part of the plant to another, right? So some examples of pteridophyte, the plants which comes under pteridophyta are Marsalia, ferns and horsetail. The diagram that you can see is of the fern. Okay, so fern is one of the best example that comes under pteridophyta. Okay, now the reproductive organs of the plants in all these three groups, they are very inconspicuous, and therefore they are called as cryptogams, and those with hidden reproductive organ. Okay, so all the plants that comes under these three groups that we have studied, all the plants, they are very much inconspicuous with respect to the reproductive organs. Okay, because their reproductive organs are hidden, so they have a hidden reproductive organ, and that is why we call them as cryptogams. What do we call them? Cryptogams. Cryptogams means hidden reproductive organ. Okay, on the other hand, the plants with well differentiated reproductive parts that ultimately make seeds, we call them as phanerogams. So we have cryptogams whose reproductive organs are hidden, and we have phanerogams whose reproductive organs are well differentiated, and further they ultimately develop, they make seeds. Okay, so such kind of plants we call them as phanerogams. Okay, so seeds, they are results of sexual reproduction process. How do we get seeds? Seeds is a result that we get because of the sexual reproduction that occurs in the plant. Okay, so they consist of the embryo along with the stored food, which assist for the initial growth of the embryo during germination. Now what happens here, the seeds have an embryo within it, and along with this embryo they are also having this stored food within them. Okay, so this stored food is going to make assist them so that the initial development of the embryo can take place and the seeds can germinate. Okay, so this group is further classified based on whether the seeds are naked or they are enclosed in the fruits, and giving us two groups. Now if you see whether they are having the seeds are naked or the seeds are enclosed in fruit, on the basis of this we can classify this group into two groups. Okay, we can classify this pteridophyta into two groups. We have gymnosperms and angiosperms to discuss. Now see, gymnosperms ka example is cycas and pinus. These are the two examples of gymnosperms that we are having. So the term gymnosperm is derived from two Greek words. ठीक है, जिम्नोस्पर्म्स कौन से वर्ड से derived है? It is derived from two Greek word. Gymno means naked and sperma means seeds. Okay, what does it means? Naked seeds. Okay, so gymnosperm का मतलब all the plants that are having naked seeds, they are all included under this gymnosperms. Okay, so the plants of this group, they bear naked seeds, and they are usually perennial, means they grow annually, they are evergreen and woody as well. And the example of gymnosperms are pines and deodar. So you can see this 7.8 wala diagram. Pinus and cycas, these are the plants who are having naked seeds, and they grow annually, they are evergreen. Okay, हमेशा वो green रहेंगे, and they are woody as well. Okay, so gymnosperm is derived from which two words? Two Greek words. Gymno means naked and sperms means seeds. Okay, so naked seeds means gymnosperms. Now after that we have this angiosperms. Now if the seeds are enclosed within the fruit, then we call that seed as like that comes under this angiosperms. Okay, so angiosperm word is made from two Greek word. Angio means covered. Now gymno means gymno means snake, angio means covered, and sperm means seeds. Okay, so gymnosperms are naked seeds and angiosperms means covered seeds. Okay, so angiosperms are also called as flowering plant. What do we call this angiosperms as? They are also called as flowering plants, and here the seeds develop inside an ovary, which is modified to become a fruit. So what happens in this angiosperms is whatever seeds that we are having, the seed is going to develop inside the ovary. What happens? Ovary के अंदर once it gets the pollen tube, because of the pollination process, what happens? Pollen tube जो है, it reaches the stigma. Okay, once it reaches the stigma, what happens? Embryo का production होगा ovary के अंदर, and then we are going to get the seeds which have been developed inside the ovary. And now see, this seed that we are having inside the ovary, it is going to get developed, or it is going to get modified into a fruit. Okay, so the plant embryos in seeds have structures which are called as cotyledons. Okay, so the plant embryo that we have, it has, like in the seed, okay, in the seed, the plant embryo that we are having, it has a structure which we call it as cotyledon. So if you remember, angiosperms are divided into two, monocots and dicots. If they are having one cotyledon, they are called as monocots. If they are having two cotyledons, they are called as dicots, right? So cotyledons are called as seed leaves. What are they called? Seed leaves, because in many instances they emerge and they become green when the seed germinates. What happens here? कॉटलीडेंस को हम सीड लीव्स बोलते हैं, बिकॉज ऐसे बहुत सारे केसेस में होता है that this seed leaves, they emerge out and they become green. When do they become green? When the seed is germinating, you will see that the leaves are turning green in color. Okay, so the angiosperm, they are divided into two groups. Can you tell me the name of the groups in which the angiosperms are divided? So that is monocot and dicot, and this division of the angiosperm is on the basis of the number of cotyledons which are present inside the seed. So how many number of cotyledons they are present inside the seed? On the basis of that, we divide angiosperms into two different parts. Okay, so the plants who are having seed with a single cotyledon. Now suppose you have got a plant and that plant is having a seed, and inside the seed there is only one cotyledon, then we call that plant as monocot or monocotyledonous plant. ठीक है, we can even call it as monocot, or we can even call it as monocotyledonous plant. And if the plant is having, if the plant with seeds, they are having two cotyledons. How many? Two cotyledons. Then we call them as dicots. Okay, so I hope you are clear with what exactly is a monocot and what is a dicot. And if you can see the structure, I told you that cotyledons, they are seed leaves, right? Why are they called seed leaves? Because the seeds, they emerge out and they become green when the seeds are germinating. So this is how a monocot looks like, and this is how a dicot looks like. Because it is having two cotyledons inside the seeds, they are called as dicot, and here because they are having only one cotyledon inside the seed, they are called as monocot. Okay, so I hope you are clear with the five main divisions of this kingdom Plantae. So we have Thallophyta, who are not having differentiated plant parts. They are not having xylem and phloem, that is, they are not having specialized tissue within them, right? After Thallophyta, we discussed on Bryophyta, where we can differentiate the plant body into root and stem and leaves, right? But and Bryophyta, it there is no specialized tissue which is present within them for conducting the water and the nutrient from one part of the plant to the another plant, right? And this Bryophyta, they are also called as the amphibians of the plant kingdom. After that, we studied on Pteridophyta, where we saw that we can differentiate the plant body into root, stem, and leaf. They have the specialized tissues, xylem and phloem, for conducting the food and minerals. Okay. Then the reproductive organs, they are very much like, you can see that the reproductive organs, they will be hidden, and if they are hidden, we call them as cryptogams. And if they are, the reproductive part is well differentiated and that is going to make seeds, then we call that as phanerogams. Okay. After that, we saw that we can divide them into two, gymnosperms and angiosperms. Gymnosperms means snake seeds, that is derived from Greek word. Gymno means snake and seeds means sperms. Okay, so the plants who are having the snake seeds, they come under this gymnosperms. And angiosperms means कवर्ड सीड्स. ओके, सो यहाँ पे क्या होता है, जो सीड होता है इनसाइड द ओवरी दैट डेवलप्स इनटू अ फ्रूट दैट गेट्स मॉडिफाइड इनटू अ फ्रूट, and the plant embryo in seeds, they are having a structure which we call it as cotyledons. Okay, and if the plants are having one cotyledon, they are called as monocot, and if they are having two cotyledon, they are called as dicots. So I hope now you are clear with the five main divisions of kingdom Plantae. Okay, now in the next class we are going to start with kingdom Animalia, where we have 10 different phylums, that is phylum Porifera, phylum Coelenterata, which is also called as Cnidaria, phylum Platyhelminthes, phylum Nematoda, phylum Annelida, phylum Arthropoda, phylum Mollusca, phylum Echinodermata, phylum Protochordata, phylum Vertebrata. These are the 10 different phylums that comes under kingdom Animalia. Now this kingdom, you can say phylum Vertebrata, is again grouped into 6 classes. Okay, so which are the 6 different classes that we are having? See, the first class that we have is called as Cyclostomata. What it is called? Cyclostomata. Okay, then the second class that we have is called as Pisces. Third class we call it as Amphibia. Fourth part we call it as Reptilia, and the fifth part we have Aves, and the last class that we have is Mammalia. Now we are all mammals, right? We are having mammary gland to feed our young ones, so we come under Mammalia. Okay, after that, we will be discussing this classification of the animals in detail and nomenclature to discuss, and then we will be discussing the summary that we have discussed in this lesson. After that, we have 6 questions. These are the 6 questions which I am showing you that we are going to discuss in this lesson as well. Okay. So I hope whatever we have discussed today about Kingdom Plantae, the 5 main divisions of Kingdom Plantae, you are clear with it. Now in the next class we are going to start with Kingdom Animalia. Okay, so we are going to continue with the rest of the part for this lesson, Diversity in Living Organism, in the next part. Thank you everyone.